Today we're putting down the engineworks ground. It's on page 8 and page 16 at the base. So I've already gone ahead and cut the base out and laid that on some foam core and cut that out too. So now what I'm going to do is glue this down, and I'm going to go ahead and reinforce the base with just a strip of regular printer paper. And I've had to do 2 sections so that it goes all the way across. I'll show you how to do that right now. You got your tools, you got Elmer's glue, old credit card for spreading stuff, X-Acto knife, hopefully you have some extra blades, metal ruler, and a scoring tool, which is just a dried out ballpoint pen. Alright, so let's go ahead and reinforce. Now, in order to reinforce, put some glue on your strip of paper. Just spread that on. And then glue it on down to your base material, and you'll need a little bit extra to finish it off because the regular printer paper is only 11 inches long, and these are 14 inches from end to end. So there you go. So that'll reinforce your edge in case you're bending it open a lot, or if you haven't put it together right as precisely as you'd like to, then it might cause a little extra strain on the edge when you fold it flat for the first time. So this reinforcement just makes sure that that doesn't cause any issues. And most likely, honestly, I've only seen this come up 1 in every 100 times that I've seen someone else assemble it. None of the ones that I've assembled myself. So it's probably not going to happen to you, but reinforcing will keep it from the 1% ruining everything like they do. Alright, so again, you spread your glue on the baseboard, not on the thing. You make sure there's no pockets of glue. A nice big pocket of glue will make it so that your thing looks slightly less pretty. Right along that edge there, match up the corners on at least one side. Looking good. And the other side. If you have extra glue, don't feel ashamed to waste some glue by wiping it off. Elmer's glue is pretty inexpensive, so you need to go get that glue again to get it to a corner. It's just waiting right there for you. Alright, so line up the corners again, flop it across. Old Fallsbury flop. If it's not lined up right, pull it off and try again, But the faster you pull it off to try again, the better. Don't just leave it there for a while and then decide to pull it off. At that point, it's too late. Just call it the quits. Alright? So at this point, you can trim off your extra material here. You could have done that before. Just trim off the reinforcement stuff. Alright, so that is looking good. We'll let that dry, and we will work on scoring our other parts. Now this is the engineworks, so there's a special instructions here for doing the stairs. Okay, the stairs are tricky on this because they include a lot of internal cuts and scores. Fortunately, there's this chart. You score on the dotted lines, cut on the solid lines, and you will be set. So let's go ahead and do that now. Now to score, take a ballpoint pen, make sure it's dry, and you draw from one blue triangle to the other. Okay, so how does that work? You start out on one blue triangle, you draw a line to the one that's pointing directly to it. Okay, and with your dried out ballpoint pen, that'll create just a little bit of a bend that will allow you to bend there before something else. And you know, you can feel it with your fingernail, just a little groove in the paper that makes it so that that's where it bends. Okay, so to do that, we follow our chart, and on all of the horizontal lines on the stairs, we'll be doing a score, and on all the vertical lines going up and down, we'll be doing a cut. So we will do that. So we'll score the bottoms, and then we'll score there, there and there, there and there, there and there. The outsides of the steps are all getting scored, and then we're going to go back and we're going to score the inside line on the steps. The side that will be up against the wall. Here we go, doing that now. And basically just line up the two sides and score both sides at once. The stairs are, at this point, almost mirror images of each other. There's some differences just to create a little flavor, but for the most part, we'll be doing exactly the same thing on both sides. And then we score this little section on the top out to there, and there we've scored everything we need to score on the steps. Now normally we score everything before we cut, but because I'm already working on the steps, I'm going to show you how to do the cutting on them. Alright? So according to this chart, you're cutting the vertical lines here, okay? So we've scored the horizontal lines, now we're cutting the vertical lines, and you don't want to cut too far, but you basically want to cut the whole line that you've seen drawn there, okay? And you probably don't need a ruler for this. So you score from the top of the line all the way down to the bottom of the line, and you score past. You cut past the place where you scored before to the bottom of the line. So you'll pass one place where you scored and go to the bottom of the line. And you'll cut out all of those internal cuts, and they should all be exactly the same length, or close to it. And that right there is probably the trickiest. It's probably the trickiest part in the whole set. It's not very complicated if you're familiar with pop-up stairs. If you're not, then it's pretty complicated. So I think we'll go ahead and do the whole thing. So I'm going to cut this out now and score the rest of the stuff later, so I can show you guys how to do this part, and so that the rest can kind of just move smoothly. So you just cut around the outside of the part. Alright, so you have your stair part here, okay? Now, what you want to do is make it look like stairs. So what you're going to do is push the back. This part right here is the back, the part that goes against the wall. And this part is the part that's going to be on the outside of the stairs. And you just kind of slowly jimmy the whole thing down like that. This piece should form a little L, a little letter L there, or a backwards letter L in this case. And fold that down so that the whole thing becomes, it'll look like this. Okay, this is the piece that you want to create when you've done this. And I'll show you on the other side of the stairs that you do the same thing. You just kind of jimmy that down and get the whole thing to move, and then this forms the regular letter L this time. And there you go, you've created your other side stairs. So we'll put those aside for now, and we will score everything else, cut everything else out, and then we'll be back after that. So score everything first, cut everything out, and then we'll be in an assembly. Alright, at this point, if you're wondering, where's the rest of my parts? You should be. That's because I forgot to tell you that you also need some parts for another page. And that page is page number 3. Okay? You're also going to need some parts from page number 3. And those parts will be the parts in this section that I'm cutting out right now. Okay? All the ones labeled EN for engine works. So we will just cut those off right now. Alright, so this section of page 3 you need for the engine works. So there's a little bit of scoring to do on this one. Alright, one more thing, okay? If you do these parts so that you leave a little bit of material in the middle, you can kind of see where the brown lines end. Okay? So, if you just cut to where those brown lines kind of end, so that you leave a little bit of space there in the middle, that is actually going to be good. So, this is something we'll have to fix in later versions, but if you don't leave a little bit of space, I'll address that later, and we'll talk about how to make that right. But if you do, that will make things run a little bit more smoothly. So, and that's a slight correction we made for later versions. But for the first several, for the first 150 of you that get these, the lucky ones to get these early, you might have to do just a few seconds worth of work to make it so that this part functions properly. Continue fast forwarding. Alright, some of you may also be wondering about this little piece right here, which on the back says Engine Works. Not labeled on the front, another thing we need to make sure we fix. But this little piece does go with the Engine Works. It is a little sign that goes on top of the water tank. So let's make sure we cut that piece out. And then we have everything cut out that we need for the engine works. So let's go ahead and start gluing stuff down. We always check our instructions to see what they will tell us. Okay. Start. So once we've cut and fold the stairs, glue EN12 through EN... No, that's wrong. Okay, so EN6, and then 7 through 9. And that's going to be these 4 big pieces right here. So, let's see. This one has 8 and 9. This one has 6 and 7. And when you're gluing things down, you want to make sure that you're lining up the ground textures and making sure that things are in the right spot. So as you glue stuff down, you want to make sure you're gluing the ground textures down. And there you go. Hold on. Alright, some of you may also be wondering about this little piece right here, which on the back says engineworks. Not labeled on the front. Another thing we need to make sure we fix. But this little piece does go with the engineworks. It is a little sign that goes on top of the water tank. So let's make sure we cut that piece out. And then we have everything cut out that we need for the engineworks. So let's go ahead and start gluing stuff down. We always check our instructions to see what they will tell us. Okay. Start. So once we've cut and fold the stairs, glue EN12 through EN... No, that's wrong. Okay, so EN6, and then 7 through 9. And that's going to be these 4 big pieces right here. So, let's see. This one has 8 and 9. This one has 6 and 7. And when you're gluing things down, you want to make sure that you're lining up the ground textures and making sure that things are in the right spot. So as you glue stuff down, you want to make sure you're gluing the ground textures down. And there you go. Hold on. All right. Glue down EN7. Here we go. And as you glue things down, you can you want to make sure the whole thing folds flat. If things need to shift a little bit in order for that to happen, then so be it at this point, because that's what needs to happen. Alright, and we glue EN9. 8 and 9, gluing those down. Again, line it up with the ground texture. And line it up with the ground texture over here. Alright, then we glue down EN12 through EN17. And that's going to be gluing down the stairs. So that's going to be gluing down the stairs. So we've got our stair pieces. And let's keep these other parts from getting lost. I'm going to glue those down. So the way that works is you glue down here up top, glue this on the side, glue this on the bottom, put your piece in right there so that it lines up. Right there so that it lines up, and on top so that it lines up, and You may find that you need to flex things a little bit from where you set them up before. It's fine, just get them on there so that the textures line up. And let that dry for a bit. Do the same thing with the other side. And 17, 15, and 12. Put it on there so that the things line up. You shouldn't see double of anything. And we'll let that dry for a bit. All right. So then we're going to glue EN 10, 11, 22, and 23. So that is going to be these parts out here. 10 and 11 will make this cool skull statue stand up, and I may not have scored that very well. Alright. 10 and 11. We'll glue those in place. Again, make sure your ground texture lines up. And then we'll glue down EN 22 and 23, and those are just boards that lean against the ground and then pop up and look fantastic. So 22 is this part right here. It just leans right there. So it leans in there, pops up when you pop up the rest, and 23 is the same. Just some bits, flavor that makes it feel a little more lived in of space. So that just glues down right there. All right. So that's 10, 11, 22, and 23. Now we glue EN 18 and 19, then 20 and 21. And those are the middle pieces that hold everything together. So with 18 and 19, again, this is an important piece to make sure that it's standing up straight. And if it's not standing up straight, then might end up having issues of its own. So make sure that this line is vertical right here. This line right in here is perpendicular to the ground, and you should be fine. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but the closer you get, the easier it'll make everything later on. So then you can attempt a little fold to make sure things are in their proper place. And then we have 20 and 21. Hold that in place till it dries. Okay, so those pieces are set. Now we work on the front and rear flaps on the buildings, and that's all these spaces here. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your piece. Let's start with a front flap here. You slot this piece onto it so that it's on there, so it sits on it like that, okay? So let's slot it on, and then you glue it down. So this is a front piece, so that's not the one I want to glue on there. Let's glue down a back piece. Again, if you have left a little piece there, that's great. If you haven't, what you can do is just cut, you know, a 1/4 inch strip of backing material, just extra material that you have laying around. You should have tons of it. I'm just using a piece that came out of one of the windows. And what you do is just glue it on the back of the piece, right in the middle. Right in the middle like that, so that there's a little piece there in the middle. And again, this will be corrected in later printings, but for those of you fortunate enough to get a first edition of this, and where the slot goes all the way across, you get to glue a tiny piece in there so that is remedied. Unless you watched my instructional video earlier and totally avoided that whole thing. So now we slot that onto that so that it holds it on. Glue that there. And glue it down to form the back flap of this fine institution. And you may have to find creative ways to hold it while it dries. Sometimes you just want someone to hold you while you dry, as they say. Alright, now we'll do the other back flap. This one I had the foresight not to cut the middle piece out, so, and hopefully if you've run into this problem, I mean, it's a simple fix, and it's one that honestly you'll never be able to see that it was ever a problem, because it just doesn't open far enough. I mean, you could, if you get underneath there and look in there, but no one ever will, right? But for those of you with later edition prints, any of the color prints, that'll be fixed on, so just forget it ever happened. Alright. Now we do the other sides of the front, and really it doesn't matter structurally which of these get glued on, and it won't really matter visually which ones get glued on where. This is just the way I've done it, but you can glue flaps on any way you like to make a more closed structure, or a structure that's open on both sides, or another one that's closed on both sides, or you can make one that's open on the other side as the other. I put mine together this way. You can put yours together a different way there in terms of which flaps go where. And I like these the way they are. I imagine like a couple of biker boys rolling up into there and getting their bikes fixed, or you know, a siege engine kind of perched on top of it with the little workers being able to climb up and build different parts on there. So we're just gluing these on, and it's kind of tricky to hold in place while it dries, but it's definitely worth it. Okay, so those are on there, and we've got a couple of little pieces here. Let's see what to do next. Mud flaps, skull pole. Alright, glue EN1 to create the water tank structure. Alright, what we're doing with that is we're wrapping this piece around. Okay, we know those pieces will be glued down to the ground. EN1 glues to EN1, and that creates the water tank structure, the main body of the water tank here. Okay, it makes a generally hexagonal shape, and then we glue EN4 and EN5 to glue the water tank down. And again, the ground textures will match up here. Fear not, you will know exactly where to glue. And little gears and parts will match up so that you know you have glued well and faithfully. And you then glue this roof down. It's a little tight. These flaps need to be loose, so you can go ahead and just make sure. If you've cut out all the white space, you're probably good. But I left a little bit here, so it's a little tighter than it should be. There we go, just knock that out. Now it's a little bit looser. Alright. And this is where you get to glue on that sign thing I told you about. To cut out, remember that? So, that just glues right on there, where the numbers say it does. Okay. Alright, so there's your water tank, and there's a cool gear that goes on the side, EN34. So at this point, you just glue that sucker right on the side there, so that it covers the spot where EN34 sign was. And there you go, you got yourself a gear. Now we also glue the smokestack to the forge, which is EN25. And that will match up somewhat with the texture there. Okay. And last but not least, there's EN24, which is a little gear that sits right here and props itself up against the side of the building. So there you go. So we'll let that dry for a few seconds, and then I'll come back and fold it flat. This one is a more complicated one, so you kind of want some parts to be dry before you fold it. Alright, so now it's dry, we're going to fold it flat. There we go, folds flat, pops back up. Mission accomplished, folks. We've done it. And that is the engineworks setting. Thanks so much for watching along, and hope you have fun with yours. Have a good one.